Dude, what's that name? I kind of set myself up by having a pregame, and then some shit happened, and then I had another pregame. So tentatively, I will be making two videos, but I kind of think one of them is gonna be shorter. You know, likely this one. Uh, so earlier I talked about the Dark Night of the Soul, and the reason I brought that up is because I see lots of talk about the Dark Night of the Soul, but I think that there's some kind of misleading information. And not to say that it's intentional. I don't think. I think some of it's definitely intentional, but a lot of it I don't think is. I think it's just left open to a lot of interpretation that can be unintentionally misleading. Let's say it like that. The Dark Night of the Soul is supposed to be a transformational time period for the soul. Obviously, by the name of it. I would just like to offer my interpretation of this alchemical process, because I think that I'll say it like this: I hear lots of beings say that they've been through their dark night of the soul. Past tense, seemingly one and done. I think that that's very strange to view it that way. I think that my personal view is that this experience in its entirety is the dark night of the soul. That's what this is to me. It fluctuates, ups and downs, mountains and valleys and whatnot, but it's in its entirety a dark night of the soul. You go through little issues, you go through big issues, you go through triumphs, you go through tragedy. I think there's a misconception that the dark night of the soul has to be entirely shitty, and that's not really how alchemy works. Not to say that everyone has to view it as alchemy, but it's a philosophical system. Use whatever words you want to use. But yeah, my view is that this experience in its entirety, from childhood until until you blank out and move on to the next, that is the entirety of the dark night of the soul. Earlier, I very spiritedly spoke of those beings that offer to help you through your dark night of the soul. I don't think they're all being disingenuous, but I certainly think the ones that are more seasoned and more studied, they're very aware that there is no beginning or end to the dark night of the soul. It's all of it. But they'll take your money to assist you for a little while, and then when you reach one of the mountains that are destined to happen, they'll say, "Okay, we made it." They'll move on. You'll move on, and then sooner or later you'll realize that there's another valley, and that's okay. I just think that I think that it's necessary to know that you could look at it as there are multiple dark nights of the soul, as I used to. Very recently I used to. This thought process that I'm conveying to you now is very new. In fact, I don't know that I conveyed it. I don't know that I acknowledged it myself until I decided to make this video. I think it was back there somewhere, because I had made the point, that there are multiple dark nights of the soul, but that wasn't that doesn't accurately encapsulate it, because even when you're not actively going through the thing or things you consider to be parts of, or the entirety of, the dark night of the soul, you're contemplating them. You're applying the things that you learned from them. You're seeing them come back around and maybe try to have a second go at you. That's included, right? That's included. So, I don't think that has to be a negative thing. I don't think that has to be gloomy or doomy or any of that shit. I just think that for those that are like me, it is way more beneficial to understand that all of this is to be learned from and to be transmuted. The more that you talk yourself out of that, I think the more delusional you can become, whether it's delusions of grandeur or, delusions of plight, meaning more plight than you actually have, or, whatever, just delusion. I'm a pessimist, I guess. I would rather look at things from a realistic standpoint and understand them as best as possible than to feed myself some sort of, Happy Meal, Disney version of it that, I'm not actually learning from. And I'm not trying to say that you shouldn't or can't, seek assistance from others that maybe have studied more, if you don't like studying, or if there's a specific system that sounds like you would benefit from it, whether that be magic or alchemy or divination, cards, readings, and all that shit. I may talk greasy about those things sometimes, but that's personal. That's me. That doesn't have to be for anybody else. And I know that should be obvious, but in case it's not, I'm not trying to tell you what you should or shouldn't do in most cases. I'm saying what I believe, what I see, what I'm transmuting, what I am adhering to, what I'm changing, I just like to share it, because I reached a point where so many were like, hey, that really helped, that I wouldn't mind more feeling that way, if possible. And it seems like it is. So, as long as it's doing that, I'll keep doing it. But that's secondary. You already know. I'm doing something. It's a cool little bonus. That's not the primary reason that I'm doing this. It just seems like my research and my studies and my great work, my magnum opus, is sometimes beneficial to others, and I like that. That's cool. But yeah, to me, there is nothing outside of the dark night of the soul. That's what this is. That's what this iteration of existence is. If you're not experiencing that, good for you. I don't know how you're doing that. I don't know how you're pulling that off. And if you're rich and you don't ever have to interact with anyone ever, I mean, I guess that's possible. But even then, that can come with its own shit. You can be very lonely. You can be very controlled or manipulated by those that govern your money, or by those that manage your money. And I use the example of money because I think that's the first thing that most go to, is if I was rich, I wouldn't be going through most of this stuff. And that, to an extent, that's true. But you would be going through other stuff, and I think many don't realize that. If you look at those that some of you look up to, or some of you idolize, or just pay attention to for entertainment, or for encouragement, whatever it may be, they're going through their own shit. It may not look like it, and honestly, I don't envy a lot of those beings, because, many of them, you can see through that facade. It's sort of sad. And I mean, you could say, look at this, look at this opposite of rich dude saying he feels sad for the rich people, and it's not. I don't feel sorry for the rich people in that way. You know what I mean? More or less, just saying. I think that many have the misconception that they don't have as many problems. I think the more immature-minded would even say, "Oh, well, they probably don't have any problems," and that's just ridiculous, you know. There are always problems, and that's another reason why I view this way. This is the dark night of the soul. This is Duat, and that's on a basis level. All this other stuff that I talk about, all the other stuff. In fact, the next video that I am about to do after this one. Like, literally, when I'm done with this one, I'm about to make the other one. That doesn't apply. That's outside interference type shit. I think that was the intention of this place in its original state, before any manipulation or interference or jacking that has happened. It's been degraded. It's been, assimilated and is no longer a symbiotic experience as it should be. I don't think that you should let that beat you. I'm not doing that. I'm encouraging my family to not do that. Those that I'm in contact with and those that I'm not in contact with yet. Doesn't have to take away what we made it for. You can still use it for that. It's on expert mode. It's on extra hard mode, which, whatever, dude, you can handle that. We can handle anything, if there's ever a reason why they would be afraid of you, it's because of that, the foreknowledge that, fuck, dude, these beings, they can handle anything as long as they're aware of what they are and who they are. To a degree, because we don't know the technicalities of who we are, but we know what we are. We can feel it. We can feel it, and you can look back and see it. There may be some things that have hurt, but you beat all of it, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. So, yeah, I just had some thoughts on that. Dark Night of the Soul. I see a lot of minimalism, right? Yeah, minimalism that's happening with that. And I think that can set... Another thing I guess I'll say is I think that can set you up for a lot of disappointment, because you're like, oh, I've been through my dark night of the soul. That's over with. Not going to happen again. That's not fucking true, Don't let anybody... don't let anybody make you think that, because even if you were to just go through a couple that you would consider to be that throughout your life, when you're done with the first one and you tell yourself, oh, I'm done with that, that's not going to happen anymore, and then you have the next one that may be worse, that fucking sucks, right? Does not feel good. And I mean, I'm speaking from experience. I wasn't using that terminology because I was in definitely in a different headspace, but same concept. I mean, that was a learning experience type thing. Oh, I got that, I'm past that now, and blah blah blah, but it doesn't work like that. And I think, it's not going to take much for many of you to hear those words and be like, you know what, yeah, that makes sense, or not, whatever. It's in any sense, it's up to you. But I'm just offering that as my viewpoint, my vantage point. Because I think it would disappoint me a lot if I kept having this finite view of it where that's done, got it out the way, no more of those, right? That's honestly kind of silly. It's a silly perspective to have. Yeah. So I guess that's it. I don't really have too much more than that. I just wanted to offer that. I feel like that's, to me, that's encouraging. That pessimistic point of view can really sound away, huh? I feel like a lot of beings don't get what I mean when I say the pessimist thing, because that pessimism and optimism has been drilled away at us all. Even I viewed a pessimist as a negative thing and an optimist as a good thing. I don't think I agree with that anymore. It's much more complex. If you would like a good explanation of a pessimist, True Detective Season 1. True Detective Season 1. Such a good season of a thing. Go check that out. A little sidebar there. That's not has nothing to do with the dark. Well, no, there's a Dark Night of the Soul in there. There's a few Dark Nights of the Soul in that season actually. So yeah, that applies to both things. If you'd like to understand me, the way my brain works a little bit from that perspective, the pessimistic perspective, True Detective Season 1. And plus it's amazing. It's a good season of some shit. Pessimism is not bad. Optimism is not always good. Neither is an absolute. Absolutes are not great in any sense most of the time. Balance. It's always balance. Honestly, I would think it's best to be a balance of the two. I'm deep off into philosophy, obviously, so I like to pick one. But that doesn't mean that I don't have aspects of an optimist within me. In fact, I viewed myself as an optimist before I discovered pessimism, true pessimism. But pessimism has way more benefits, in my opinion. It's way more realistic. Being an absolute optimist, or even an extreme optimist, which is a little less, I would think, than absolute, you can set yourself up for some bullshit. You're building yourself up for potential fallouts, is my view of it. Pessimism, you just have lots of happy accidents and pleasant surprises. You know what I mean? I don't know. Alright, I gotta do this other video. Bye, I love you.